Welcome to Wisconsin in Focus. I'm Bruce Walker, Great Lakes Regional Editor for the Center Square. Joining me today is the Center Square's Wisconsin correspondent, Benjamin Yount. Let's jump right into it. You posted a story about our friends at Will who have won a race-based discrimination lawsuit against Comcast corporate policies. Tell me what happened here.
This is an interesting story because it is both a first, the first time that Will has gone after a Fortune 500 company and come away with a settlement, but it's also a continuation because the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, who, as you pointed out, is a very active group here in Wisconsin, has made it one of their focuses to look at race-based discrimination, not just here in Wisconsin, but across the country. And essentially, this is what you see from so many companies, a small business grant program. The idea being, hey, there are businesses out there who need some help after the coronavirus. We've got a bunch of money. Let's go ahead and offer it to them. But because this happened, as Will put it, after the summer of 2020, after the death of George Floyd, you have an awful lot of companies, states, government programs, the Biden administration, focused on race. And so the qualifications for this Comcast RISE program, as it was called, are you had to be a business that was in business for a year, had to actually operate here in the United States, couldn't be a foreign entity, couldn't be a franchise, and you had to be in a Comcast zone. All of that perfectly legal, all of that perfectly understandable. But the number one, the leadoff, the main criteria was to be 51% owned by a minority or a woman or a person of color. And what that means, when you take a look at who is eligible, it tells you who is ineligible. And essentially, Will argued, and the case was settled in their favor, that Comcast was saying, if you are a white guy, don't apply for this because you're not going to receive a grant. And the argument that they made in court, federal court in Indiana, and the conversation that Dan Lennington, the lead attorney on the case, and I had just the other day was discrimination is discrimination, period, full stop. Discrimination isn't okay if you think that you're discriminating against somebody for the right reasons. Discrimination based on race is not only wrong, it's against the law. It is against federal law. And they went to court and Comcast agreed and backed down and settled the case.
What exactly went down? When was the case filed? And it wasn't settled this week, as I understand it. It was some time ago, but not this week. Is that correct?
Yeah, this was in the Southern District of Indiana, which means it's in federal court in Indianapolis. And as that I work in Wisconsin, I wasn't in court for the filing and the proceedings. But Will warned of this last year and pointed out, because this is part of what they're calling the Equality Under the Law Project. And there were plaintiffs in this case in Indiana and in Tennessee and a couple of other states that escape my mind right now. But this was one of many cases that Will has filed. Again, I said a continuation, but this was the first against a Fortune 500 company. This is one of many cases where post George Floyd, post 2020, summer of 2020, you had an awful lot of people focusing on race. And Will has been very active with this. Here in Wisconsin, they have sued the state of Wisconsin and they have sued Madison Public Schools several times over race-based issues, segregation issues. And it can be something as simple as, well, we want to encourage minorities to apply, or we want to encourage minority participation. The case against Madison Public Schools was based on the idea that Madison schools wanted to make sure that young African-American kids got more help in reading. So when they broke off into small student groups, teachers were instructed to check on and check with African-American kids more frequently and first before white kids. And again, back to the point, you don't get to discriminate. You don't get to segregate based on race. Perhaps the most famous, I don't know if famous is the right word, but the case that gets the most attention Will sued the Biden administration over a farm loan program that was designed exclusively for African American farmers. And as Will put in that case, which they won, the Biden administration backed down and changed the rules. You don't get to discriminate based on race, even if you think that in the past these people were discriminated against. Federal law is clear. You cannot take race or sex into consideration when saying, I'm sorry, you don't get to be a part of this.
Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For Ben Yount, this is Bruce Walker, Great Lakes Regional Editor for The Center Square. Please subscribe, and thanks for listening.